Fintan, obviously our 19-year wait for Sam Maguire unfortunately goes on. I asked Damon Murphy earlier on today, where do you think it went wrong for Cork?
Look, I suppose there was never so much optimism amongst Cork people heading into a Cork-Kerry match, and I suppose that would have only been raised by the start. I mean, if you thought people before again they were going to be up 1-3 to a point after 10 minutes, I think there's a couple of things where you kind of went wrong. I mean, they went out of the score between the 20th and the 50th minute. That was a long time. After going up by 5 earlier on, as Conor Coonan alluded to downstairs after the match, failed to kick on. Kerry hit about 5 or 6 points there in a row in the first half, and as well in the second half. When Cork threatened to make some sort of a comeback, they got it back to 13 points to 1-9, but they just couldn't manage to get level or get ahead, or I suppose get those couple of rousing scores from play, get the crowd behind them, and kind of really kick on. Every time they kind of drew level, Kerry seemed to have some response, and it wasn't as if Kerry, were magnificent today, but I mean they just had a couple of players. I mean, Colm Cooper scored every free that he hit. Tommy Walsh went in with 4 points in play, which I don't think many people had forecast that he was going to do beforehand. Declan Sullivan was very good from open play, and then in defence, the likes of Tomás O'Shea and Thomas Sullivan really excelled. But very, very disappointing, I suppose, considering the way Cork had just impressed so much around the championship, and they seemed to be progressing so much, and that they were finally ready to take on Kerry in Croke Park and to beat them. But fortunately, it didn't prove to be the case.
And Cork have been very clinical throughout the year, really, so it was kind of uncharacteristic to see so many wides and so many bizarre wides. I think there was 13 wides in the end for Cork. Yeah,
and I suppose you look at the score. I mean, they scored 1-9 today. You looked like it's only 2 games ago since they scored 127. That was against Donegal, but I mean, even look at the Munster semi-final replay against Kerry, they scored 117. So the scoring rates have improved a lot this year. But I mean, I suppose there was vital misses at vital times, from both open play and frees, and I think particularly in that period after half time when they kind of needed a couple of scores. I mean, Kerry just seemed to deprive them of the space, and the way that they opened up Tyrone in the semi-final, they never came close to replicating that today. And that was the difference. I mean, they needed 1-9 isn't a good enough return, especially when you consider they scored 1-3 in the first 10 minutes, and then the remaining 60 minutes only scored 6 points.
I don't think anyone would disagree with the fact that the talent is in this Cork team to win an All-Ireland, but is it a mental thing at this stage?
I suppose people are going to say that. I mean, when they've lost so many games to Kerry, but I mean, look, people are going to point to the fact that Cork have been losing games to Kerry since 2002. The 15 that lined out there today is vastly different to the 15 that lined out in 2002. I mean, even from the team that lost out 2 years ago, there's been 8 changes to the starting 15. For the likes of Patrick Kelly, Paul Kerrigan, Daniel Gooley and Colm O'Neill. That's 4 of the attack. It was their first time starting in an All-Ireland final. That's a big difference. The one thing you would say about Cork in comparison to Kerry is the time seems to be on their side. It is still a very, very young side. I mean, there's about 8 or 9 of them under the 24 age mark. So you'd like to think this experience can bring them on, but I mean, look, they've done everything that has been asked of them so far this year, but just that one last hurdle that they had to jump, beat Kerry in Croke Park, they just couldn't do it.
I suppose we have to give credit to Kerry as well today. Obviously, going back to that Munster semi-final replay, nobody could really have predicted that they'd end up winning the All-Ireland given the way they played that day, but they were fantastic today.
Yeah, they were, and look, you have to give them credit. I mean, not only would you say that after the Munster semi-final replay that they wouldn't win the All-Ireland, I think a lot of people, there was sometimes during those qualifiers, I mean, I remember being down in Sligo, or down in Tralee, when they played Sligo, when David Kelly lined up that last minute penalty. I mean, it could have all been so different. I mean, I suppose the Dublin game was really where they turned it around, and I suppose little things like bringing Mike McCarthy back into the defence, they repositioned the team. Tommy Griffin went back to full back, Darragh O'Shea's influence grew, Seamus Scanlon back from injury. Just in different games they had a forward capable of stepping up to the mark. I mean, today Paul Galvin didn't really impact in a scoring sense, neither did Declan Sullivan, but Tommy Walsh got 4 points in play. I mean, that's the difference in All-Ireland finals. A guy can come from nowhere to, I suppose, to pitch in with a big score in return, and Kerry had that player today in Walsh getting those 4 points in play. Cork didn't have a guy that got the 3 or 4 points in play that they would have needed to win.
And obviously hugely disappointing as well for Conor Coonan. Fintan, he's done a great job really over the last 2 years since he came in. It'll be a long winter of reflection for him, I'm sure. Can we expect to see him in the Banished Stores bib again next year?
Yeah, look, I think you have to pay a huge credit not only to Conor Coonan, but I suppose to his selector team, Gerard Sullivan, Jim Nolan, Terry O'Neill and Peadar Healy. Look, they took the job in very difficult circumstances last February. They didn't have much time to try and get the team right. They were starting behind other inter-county teams, and they did a very admirable job last year. This year, they built on it very well. Again, I mean, winning promotion from the National League Division 2, which I think might stand to them next year, playing Division 1 football next spring. And obviously there's hope in the fact that the under-21s won another All-Ireland, then you'd hope that some of these young players would start coming through. Look, everyone in the Cork camp, I mean, they did everything right this year. It was just, I suppose, the last day of the All-Ireland final where things just went a bit awry, and I suppose that's the unfortunate thing, that on the biggest day of the football year it didn't go to plan for them, and the one that they wanted, and the one I suppose that everyone in Cork wanted, there's been a lot of All-Ireland titles in Cork this year, but I suppose the big one just eluded them. But look, I think time is on their side. I think Conor Coonan will be back next year, and look, I don't think this is going to diminish Cork's standing as perhaps a proper football force to challenge the likes of the Kerrys and Tyrones.
There was a lot of focus coming into today's game on referee Marty Duffy. How do you think he performed?
I thought he had a poor display, to be honest. I mean, look, I thought in the first 15 minutes I thought he gave some calls Cork's way, and then it seemed as perhaps before half time he was trying to level that up. Perhaps there was a couple of frees awarded in favour of Colm Cooper, where I thought it was questionable as regards Anthony Walsh. And another point, I suppose, in the second half, I thought it was a shocking call. I mean, clearly television replays showed Darren O'Sullivan bounced the ball twice in a row, and it wasn't that it was a good bit out the field. He did it close in and goal. You think the umpire should have spotted it, and he put that ball over the bar, and that was a vital score for Kerry. I think that made it. I think that might have made it 14 points to 1-9. I'm not 100% sure about that, but it was definitely a big score, and that wasn't brought up in it. I mean, look, it wasn't the reason that Cork lost the game, the fact of the refereeing or the umpiring or anything like that. But I just thought it wasn't an impressive display of officiating.
Just finally, Fintan, you mentioned it earlier that youth probably is on this Cork team's side. Going back to the late 80s, I suppose we had to lose 2 to win 2. So hopefully next year they can bounce back, and we'll see them here again on All-Ireland final day.
Absolutely, talking to Gerard Sullivan downstairs, the Cork selector, that was a point he made about how the great team of the 80s, lost 2 and then came back to win 2. And I mean, look, the fact is the time is on their side. I mean, not only the players on the team being under 24, but some of the young players, the likes of Aidan Walsh, Kieran Sheen. If he I suppose stays in Ireland and starts playing Gaelic football with Cork, rather than going to Australia to Carlton, I mean, he's a huge talent. Like, so was Aidan Walsh. There's a couple of other guys, the likes of Fiacre Lynch amongst the subs. This was all their first year on the Cork panel. Even Colm O'Neill, I mean, he only came into the senior team from the start against Donegal. I mean, I think you could really see the benefits of a spring of National League football for these players. Look, and I think if you look at the age profile of the two sides, Cork versus Kerry, look, I think Cork are still travelling in the right direction. Okay, it's going to take another year at least before they can, I suppose, land the prize that everybody wants. But look, I still think the future is bright for Cork football, and the outlook is positive, despite what is obviously a massive disappointment today.